Thank you for inviting to give reflections for what I think is a, if not unique, but extremely welcome approach that we already saw. We also saw young people telling about the conclusions that were made based on the listening and hearing, which is so necessary. I decided to give a comment or two for each recommendation that you gave, because I thought that was the perhaps most useful and also motivating format for this very brief reflection. So the first recommendation for practical action, which was on the holistic approach in education, very strong support for that approach, which is a cornerstone of the Finnish educational approach for several decades. And I would in particular perhaps mention one element that we are currently focusing more than before, for instance, here in the capital in Helsinki because of the COVID, and that's called positive discrimination. In other words, in order for schools to really have that holistic approach in different environments, we provide different resources for schools in different circumstances, be it the social status of parents, poverty, and different criteria that can be put into place. So positive discrimination in order to really provide the opportunities for such holistic approach in different contexts. So I think that could perhaps be even a recommendation on the G20 level, at least to be considered in some context, because it has proven to be a very useful tool. Here I mentioned two things that may be useful. One is that I am a strong believer in making things somewhat official. So if the students at school have an official seat at councils and decision-making places, they must be heard. So as much as we can sort of push that kind of approach for even to be legislated as part of systems, the stronger voice of the young people we have. And similarly, curriculum has sort of different traditions in different parts of the world. In some parts, it's a framework with a very broad sort of autonomy on different levels for interpretation, while some other places, it's a very strict directives as how the school is supposed to be. So if the curriculum has this more open approach, framework-like, it allows, again, for student as well as, for instance, for parent and teacher voices much more than the very stricter format that, for instance, is typical for Anglo-American countries more. Then the third recommendation for access to quality. Here I have one warning. I'm not against of the public-private partnership, and I think it's a good recommendation. I would just say that there is a risk of over-dependence on certain companies, for instance, when we talk about technologies, infrastructures, etc. And it perhaps is the time to think some global policies for this, because this is a phenomenon of every school system at the moment. The fourth recommendation on the ecological and global concerns in the curricular agenda, I have an example to give you here. I worked with an organization called United World Colleges for about 25 years, and it's a secondary school diploma focused and utilizing the IB, the International Baccalaureate. And it has been working since 1960, so the experience is about 60 years. And as part of the United World Colleges diploma and the International Baccalaureate diploma, as part of the curricula, there is something called social service. So it's a must, you must do it as part of your curriculum. And it really has allowed for these goals that I think are now in the recommendation 4. So there is a ready actually format for that. And if more information is needed, I'm very happy to provide. I'm a chairman of the board of one of the schools that is working in a post-war setup in the city of Mostar, former Yugoslavia, Bosnia-Herzegovina. And finally, for the fifth recommendation about teachers, my comment would be that it's a very good idea to bring this to the global forum, because education is such a national issue and teachers tend to work and look their work from the very national perspective. And I'm not meaning nationalistic perspective, simply digitalization or COVID to sort of also common attention and look common solution, I think can be extremely fruitful for our teacher practice globally. Thank you very much.